It is election day 2025. We'll be talking about it. This is Nuance. I'm Mike Scala. I'm an attorney and MC, and some other things as well, as we've established. Chair of Queens Defenders, counsel to the Queens Link, and a Queens County Committeeman, joined as always by Jay Carter, also known as Timid, the hip hop artist and the chair of BLM Tokyo. And I know it's not election day in Japan, right? But it is here in the US.
No, it is not election day in Japan. Japan had their election a while back.
So, why don't you briefly tell us about elections in Japan without going into too much detail, but just how is it different from the US? Does Japan use a parliamentary system?
To be honest, I don't know a lot about their elections, like as far as people going into voting, but yes, Japan uses a parliamentary system. So, like England and some other places in Europe. So Japan just elected or just uh, put in position a new prime minister. And so the way that works in the parliamentary system is more I guess the party gets the most votes, and then the party chooses who's the head of the party, which then is the prime minister of the country. So um,
Right.
Japan, Japan, by all accounts, is normally normally said to be much more patriarchal than United States, like kind of the U.S. in the 50s, where it's pretty much open. It's more acceptable to be openly misogynistic or men more in power. Like in the United States, we've taken strides to make things a little bit more fair, and they're not completely fair, but it's supposed to be a little bit more fair. There have been times where people have argued, companies have argued that women are required to wear makeup and skirts in the office because
Mm-hmm.
that's what women do. Um, and this is not like past stuff. It'd be modern modern day.
Yeah.
So, but saying all that, despite that, Japan has its first female prime minister
Isn't that
now
something? Isn't
before
that,
the United States.
by the way, as
Given, yeah,
results started coming in. But we'll go ahead. Yeah. Before the US, by the way, the US is just behind so many countries in the world that you would think would be behind us, right? In terms of progress, right? I mean,
right,
Pakistan, right, had a female head of state before the U.S. So many countries have.
right.
The U.S. is one of the last ones to do it. That is pretty fascinating. I mean, maybe that's not even the right word. Maybe depressing is a better word.
Right. Yeah. And and I separate that from her politics, because a lot of people are not happy with it because she's far right wing. She's a little bit anti-immigration, anti-foreigner, and so there's going to be some issues there. But just on the fact that supposedly, and probably by most accounts, Japan is a few steps behind where America was supposed to be, in regards to treating women fairly. They still put forth a female prime minister, leader of the country before the United States did.
Well, speaking of women leaders, right, the governor's race in Virginia has its first results coming in as polls have closed there already at the top of the hour. And this race is between two women nominees. Both the Democratic nominee and the Republican nominee are women. So that's historical in a sense. And so far, you have the Democratic candidate, Abigail Spanberger, ahead of Winsome Earl Sears. Looks like 65% to 35%, but obviously very early, still 0% all in.
Yeah. Listen, it's very encouraging that the Democrats seem to be, at least in Virginia, like everything across the board, right? The governor you mentioned, Attorney General,
Mm-hmm.
the Democrat Jay Jones is leading Republican Jason Miyares, 60%, 60.8% to 38.8%. And then in Virginia, the Lieutenant Governor, the Democratic Lieutenant Governor is leading 61.5% to 38.4% for John Reed, the Republican. So I think Virginia Virginia knew the assignment.
Virginia used to be a pretty solidly red state really up until Obama's election in 2008. That's when things
Right.
changed there. And you've had some Republicans since, but for the most part, right, it has become a Democratic state since 2008. And so
It's definitely been that purple state, right?
it's considered a swing state, but the Democratic candidate, at least for president, has won every single time since
Mm,
Obama. And also, like we're seeing, right? Usually now the governorship held by a Democrat, like we said, not always. And one thing to note about Virginia is you can only run 4 years at a time for governor. So you can't run for reelection. Once you do your one term, you're termed out. So there's always a new person coming in every four
mm,
years. And so there is a lot of turnover there. But most of these recent gubernatorial races have been won by Democrats. Also, look at the state house. Again, used to be very red in Virginia. Now you have
mm.
Democratic majorities. And so that's a new thing, right? Prior to Obama's election, you would have to go back
Right.
to 1964, LBJ, to even find a Democratic presidential candidate win in Virginia.
Right. Now, we'll have to definitely say that this is still early, right? It's not all the results from all the counties aren't in, even though I'm just looking at the movement right now. Abigail Spanberger's lead just dropped.
Right.
So now she's at 58.6% to
Yeah.
the
And so
41.2%.
one thing to keep in mind here is, first of all, in a state like Virginia, the candidate, whether Democratic or Republican, is not winning 65-35, right? It's going to be a tighter race, as we're seeing. It depends on which areas are being counted and when, right? And this is not just a Virginia phenomenon. You see this everywhere, right? People think
Hmm.
of states, for example, or even cities as having a certain political identity, right? Like we just said, oh, Virginia
Right.
became a blue state. New York City, we say, is a blue city. New York is a blue state, whatever. But the reality is there are certain areas
Right.
within all of them, right, that do different things, right? Like in Virginia, and this is again, you'll find this almost everywhere in the country. You look at a more rural area, let's say a rural county, right? You're going to find a lot more Republican votes, strong Republican votes. Same can be
Right.
said for New York, right? You go upstate into the most rural areas, strong Republican votes, right? If you look at the cities and the more suburban areas, things tend to trend Democratic, right? Then you have your swing areas. And so when you see, the first votes come in the state, let's say, or even in the city, and it's like, oh, look at this one candidate dominating, and then things start to change, it's because other areas with different political makeups are then being counted.
Right. Right. And so like this I would imagine Virginia, Richmond is heavily blue,
Yep.
but there are going to be a lot of rural areas that are going to be heavily red.
Yep.
Uh,
That's exactly
and
right.
so,
Northern
yeah,
Virginia also pretty heavily blue because you have a lot of immigrant communities and people migrating from the Northeast, right? That's the
right,
DC suburbs. And so a lot of people who live there come from all over, especially from the Northeast, places like New York, right? Places like Boston, Philadelphia. And yeah, so that's going to be more Democratic. But like
yeah,
you said, most of the state geographically is Republican. Most states. That's why when you see these maps, right? Even like you look at the presidential maps, you're like, look at all that red on the map. Yeah, most geographical areas
right,
are dominated by Republicans. But as we know, land doesn't vote, people vote, right? And so
right,
Democrats win because the Democrats are not as spread out. They tend to be more concentrated in cities, right? And so, if
right,
you look at the map, they're going to be contained to a smaller geographical area, but there are a lot more people in that area, right? And so that's always the game, right? Do the people in the cities outnumber the people in the rural parts of the rest of the state, essentially?
right. So, so we're
Yeah.
gonna see how things progress. I'm hoping for a blue sweep. Um,
Well, we're looking at the New Jersey governor's race as well, right? I think their polls close at 8 o'clock. So about 42 more minutes. And that one has been close. If you look at the polls, Mikey Sherrill is a Democratic candidate against the Republican Jack Ciattarelli. We took a look at some of those ads. I found them to be kind of strange. I'll be honest. I sent you, I think, a clip of that Jack Ciattarelli ad where he's like, "Vote Ciattarelli. He's Italian for change." I'm like, what? I watched that ad like 20 times trying to figure out what he was trying to say there.
yeah, yeah, it was just kind of weird.
I think he was trying to be like maybe folksy, like yeah, he's like a good Italian guy, but The way he
Yeah.
phrased it was just weird. And first of all, not even in like why is that even in there? Number one, but number two, it was phrased in such a way that I couldn't even really understand it at first.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely trying to reach that specific demographic.
But this is a commercial, by the way, that was on. I saw it. It was a New York City media. It was on TV in the New York City media market, and so it wasn't even like it was targeted to an Italian enclave in somewhere. Right? No, everyone got this commercial. And I just I didn't get it. I didn't get it. Yeah, I mean, is that helpful? Maybe he figures that just New Jersey has a very high Italian population, or people just going to find it cute or something. I don't know. But also the way he said it, like I said, it was like he's Italian for change. It was very odd.
Right.
But then you have
So,
Mikey Sherrill on the other side, and I've been kind of teasing this. I even mentioned it on Nuance before. The way she speaks, in my opinion, doesn't make her sound like someone from New Jersey. And people have pointed out, well, not all New Jersey governors have come from New Jersey originally. I know. We just talked about Virginia, right? Oftentimes, Virginia governors come from other places originally too, and they don't have Southern accents, right? I get it, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily an asset to not sound like you're from the state you're seeking to represent, especially in today's day and age where populism, right, is all the rage. I think people like that, like we said, more folksy, colloquial, like Jack Chiarelli. Hey, how you doing? He's Italian. You know what I mean? That might actually appeal more to Mikey Sherrill, who doesn't sound like she's from that part of the country. She's talking about costs. I'll lower your costs. Everyone knows in New Jersey, that's not how they say costs, So I don't know. I feel like that might have something to do with why this race is as close as it is, because New Jersey should be a strong Democratic state.
yeah. To be honest, none of these races should be close. By what's going on in the country and what's been happening the past 9 months, there should be no ambiguity on the results. It should be a clear blue wave across. Even if you're not a Democrat, just seeing what's happening, you should be like, no, this is not America. This is not what we do. I remember I just sent you the articles about, there was the U.S. citizen shot by ICE in
Yeah.
California. I believe there was one that happened in Chicago, maybe as well. Like they're running through the streets. Like no one should be looking at this and being like, oh, well, it's just still politics. Like,
Right.
you know,
Well, I do predict that the Democratic candidates will prevail in both Virginia and New Jersey, but the
you
margins.
think they're going to take governor's seat in Virginia?
Oh yeah, I do think so.
So you think Winsome Earl's going to win in Virginia for governor?
You don't think so? You
And I
don't
don't
think
know.
that
I don't know.
Hamburger is going to win? I think she's going to win.
I don't know. One thing that's been really good coming out of this with the Abigail Spencer is Obama came off the bench and he's been doing a lot of good speeches, or at least there's that one that's been flooding social media. Um, And so, it is good to kind of hear complete sentences again. But I don't know who's gonna take it. So do you think Winsome Earl's gonna take, or it's gonna be red all across the board in Virginia?
No, I didn't say red. I said blue.
Oh, so you think Spamberger's going to win in
Yeah,
Virginia?
yeah.
Oh, okay. What about Jersey?
I think Mikey Sherrill's going to win, but it's going to be closer than you would like it to be.
Okay. And what about NYC?
That's interesting. I think Mamdani is certainly the favorite, and he went into tonight ahead in the polls. But
Right.
Cuomo does have momentum on his side, right? It may be too little, too late. It may not be. One thing that's interesting about the New York City election is the turnout has been incredibly high. I mean,
Really?
usually you're looking at about 1 million votes total, right? Now, the city has a population of about 8.5 million, right? Give or take. But usually
Right.
it's about 1 million votes total. Now, of course, not everyone is registered to vote because you have to be a citizen, you got to be registered, right? But
Right.
about 1 million total. So far, and this was before we went on the air, we had passed 1.8 million already and counting.
Nice.
And so there's speculation we might actually hit 2 million, which kind of throws things up in the air a little bit, right? Because the conventional wisdom was kind of based on that turnout being somewhere in the 1 million range.
Hmm.
Now, when you're talking about 2 million, it's like twice as many as expected. Uh,
Hmm.
that does kind of make things a little bit more unpredictable, right?
Hmm.
And you have
Right.
to ask, what is responsible for this huge turnout? Now, part of it is going to be people inspired to vote for Mamdani, but there's a lot also coming out to vote against him, right? So is it more,
Right.
is this extra turnout more for or more against? Is really what you have to weigh, right? The
Right.
last poll going into tonight had Cuomo down by about 4 points, but he was down by 10 points last week. He was down by 20 points the week before that. And so he's
Right.
quickly gaining ground, right? Like I said, the question is it too little too late, right? Maybe if this campaign would have gone an extra week, he could have caught up. So I don't know. But again, that polling does look at or I guess contemplate a smaller population. Now, before we
Right.
came on here, I was looking at as well as a PDF that had Cuomo down by 4 points.
Uh-huh.
And I was looking at a few things. Number one, what was the sample size? And it actually was a very large sample size. It was over a
Hmm.
thousand people that they surveyed. Now, that's pretty big. A lot of these polls that you've seen have
Hmm.
about 500 people, sometimes less, right? So to have over a
Hmm.
thousand people should give them more confidence in the results, right? And I was looking at some probabilities and statistics before. I was looking at margin of errors and things like that. And I think it said if your population, in other words, if the voter turnout was going to be about 1 million, you could get within 4 points margin of error with
Hmm.
400 people polled. But if it was 2 million, you can get within 4 points with 600 people polled. Well, they went, like we said, like double that. And so even with the 2 million turnout, they should be pretty close to what the result is, meaning Mamdani ahead by about 4 with the margin of, I think the margin of error is like 3 or something like that. So still very close. The question is,
Hmm.
though, number one, have things changed even since that poll was conducted, right? Because there's a little bit of a delay. They conduct the poll, then they put the results out. In that time, things continue to shift, and day by
Right.
day, things have been changing here. Cuomo's been making up ground. So has he even gained more ground since that poll was conducted? Number one, and number two, and here's the real question: how representative of the actual electorate was that poll? Because I think a lot of
Hmm.
people focus on the numbers, right? A lot of people say that poll can't be trusted. It only has 500 people. No, that could actually be a good poll if it's sufficiently representative of the population, right?
Right.
But like we said, with all these new people coming, it isn't just a matter of numbers. It isn't just a matter of more overall people voting. It's a question of
Right.
who are those people and how similar or different are they from the
The
sample, right?
makeup.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think it becomes a little bit more unpredictable now.
Right. Yeah. And I think you said something earlier that I think was really the crux as far as this influx of extra voters that they didn't account for
Mm-hmm.
in and what's bringing them out. And you said that it's either they're coming out for Mamdani or against Mamdani, and I think that's probably the reality of it. It's not
Mm-hmm.
that this extra influx is coming out for Cuomo or for Sliwa.
No,
It's whatever that the energy around Mamdani. Are you really for him or are you turned off by him? And that's where that extra numbers are coming out.
right. And one thing also to mention last night, Trump made a rant on Truth Social where he told Republicans, basically his followers at least, to vote for Cuomo. Will that change anything? That could do a few different things, right? It could, and
Right.
it actually is. I'm seeing it in around here where you do have more conservative pockets. I'm seeing people say that they held their nose and voted for Cuomo. There was Sliwa all along. I think it was the Trump thing that convinced them to vote for Cuomo. So some people are doing that. However, it could also turn people off Cuomo and have more people vote for Mamdani who weren't going to before because Trump said to vote for Cuomo.
Right. And we're seeing that. That was I sent you the interaction with Cuomo and Hot 97 when he was talking to Ebro and Ebro
Uh,
was brought that up. He's like, "Listen, Trump said you're his guy. He just gave you basically what's going on here or and then Cuomo just hung up. Um So yeah,
Yeah,
it
I mean
can
that's
definitely
kind of
turn people
trolling. I mean,
off.
and Cuomo responded today, and he was like, Trump's not a bad Democrat. It wasn't like Trump was like Cuomo's that dude. He was just
Right.
saying be pragmatic about it. Basically, what a lot of people have been saying: Sliwa can't win. Numerically, he just can't win. A lot of people didn't want to believe that, right? Because I heard that, and they said, "Well, I know the polls show he's down, but we don't believe in the polls." And, listen, this is a matter of statistics, right? The polls aren't like some magical potion that's going to tell you what's going to happen. They're not a crystal ball, right?
Right.
But they do have useful information if you know how to read them, if you know how to look at them. Of course, things can shift, right? They can get things wrong. There's all kinds of stuff that goes into it, but to just disregard them altogether, and so like if poll after poll comes out showing Sliwa at like 10%, 11%, he's not going to magically end up with 65%. That's not how it works,
Right.
So, not saying that these things are always 100% accurate. Like we said, things change, right? Things get misread, but there is information to be learned there. And as I posted on my page a while back, it isn't even a matter of the polls, it's a matter of the math in New York City. And I think some people are so in their own bubbles that they kind of presume that everything's equally divided between Democrats and Republicans and everyone has equal shot to win or something like that. But no, in New York City, if you look at the voter registration, right, about two-thirds are Democrats, about 11% only are Republicans, and I think 21% or so are independent. So when people say things like, well, if Mamdani and Cuomo were to split the Democratic vote, Sleewood would win. Well, no, not even if you look at those numbers. They can chop they could be three Democrats equally split in a vote and still be ahead of Sleewood, right? Because there's so many more Democrats than Republicans in New York. So a lot of people don't get that.
Right. Yeah, and you made a post on your Facebook basically talking about the numbers just don't add up. And there were even people in the comments there like, no, he still has a shot. Like, no,
Right.
he doesn't have a shot.
No, no, he doesn't.
Doesn't Jill
But see,
Stein never had a shot. Like,
right,
stop
right.
stop throwing
Myself
it
saying
away.
myself saying that. By the way, Eric Ulrich, the former councilman, said the
Yeah.
same thing I said. I think a day before. I didn't even see his post, but he basically said the same thing I said. And now Trump is saying it. So I think people are getting that message, and it is affecting things. Like someone before put up a post. They were a Sliwa supporter, and they were disappointed to hear that their neighbors said they were voting for Cuomo. I guess realizing Sliwa couldn't win. A lot of the Sliwa signs around here came down. Although I understand they're still pretty big in the Rockaways, like Bell Harbor and these areas. So
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. If you look at the polling again, Cuomo does beat Mamdani one-on-one, but the reason why Mamdani does have that edge, according to the polling, is because people are still hanging on to Sliwa. Not that many of them, but enough to take away votes from Cuomo.
Right.
So here's a
Listen,
question.
if you're a
Is
Republican
that
in
an
New York
argument?
City,
Okay.
don't be a punk. Don't be a sellout. Vote for Sliwa.
that's what, yeah, that's what the Mamdani people are saying. Mamdani and Sliwa kind of hand in hand. In fact, if you saw the last debate, and this will be a segue into my question. At the last debate, it was posed, let's say there was ranked choice voting in a general election, because we don't have that. We have it in the primaries only, right? If there was ranked choice voting in a general election, what would your ranking look like? And they asked that of the candidates. Mamdani said he would put himself first and Slee was second, which is pretty telling. So
Mm,
the question is this an argument for ranked choice voting? And now myself, I've been pretty critical, right, of the concept of ranked choice voting, but there are
right.
others out there who are saying that the majority of New Yorkers are anti-Mamdani, but if he wins, it'll be because the vote is split. So if you had ranked choice, you could do things like, well, Sliwa number one, Cuomo number two, or vice versa. Uh,
Right.
what do you think about that? Do you think that's an argument for ranked choice voting, or is it odd that we have it only in primaries but not the general election?
Um, I don't, I'm still not really sure what I feel about ranked choice voting in
Yeah,
that regard. I do think, in the primary, it there could be an argument because it gives the potential for more chance, right? Because people can have other options to vote for, like they do their rankings. I don't know about if it should work like that in the general. Um, you need to make a definitive choice, I think, in the general.
Hmm,
Like, you
okay.
know, this is my guy. This is my lady, right?
Is
You
that
need to make it.
because it's the last election? Like this is like the one
I
where it'll
think
count?
so.
Or is that because the general election is more based on picking your party or your ideology, whereas with the primary, there could be several candidates in that same lane, roughly.
Well, I think the difference, and a lot of people don't really I don't know, acknowledge it. The primaries are generally basically internal elections, right? So you have to be in that party basically to vote for whoever the candidate is in that party. Whereas in the general, it doesn't matter what your party affiliation is, you can vote for whoever you want,
Hmm.
right? So you're voting for who's your person that's going to take it all. And I think that's the differentiator
Hmm.
between, when ranked choice voting might be okay or not okay. I'm still not sure one way or another if it should be even happen, but like we've
Right.
discussed before, there were issues with people coming out to vote, and you got to try something, Listen, if this experiment yields results to get more people to the polls, then that's great. If it doesn't, then you move on to
Hmm.
something else. Let's try to.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure it's done that. I don't know if there's any evidence that ranked choice
Right, I
voting
think we talked about
yeah,
that.
is responsible for more people coming out. And certainly, like now, we're seeing this huge turnout. Nothing to do with ranked choice, right? There is no ranked
Right.
choice here.
It's
So
candidates. It's the
yeah,
candidates.
yeah,
Whatever, whether it's, they're for the candidate or against it, it's excitement around the
uh huh.
candidates, and that could be the answer over the board. Like, are the candidates just not touching people enough to get them out?
And that's a good point because I think we had a discussion previously about ranked choice voting potentially making things more negative. Like in the
Right.
primary, a lot of people were saying, don't rank Cuomo. They weren't even telling you who you should rank. It was just, don't rank that guy. And
Right.
they can't say that in a general, right? People can't really say, just don't vote for Cuomo. Well, no, because what does that mean? I mean, or don't vote for Mamdani, let's say. What does that mean? That would mean that the opposing votes will be split. And so what they want to do is tell you to pick one of them. So now you are
Right.
seeing vote Mamdani, vote Cuomo, vote Sliwa. So yes, of course, there's still negativity. There's always negativity in campaigns, but at least now you're seeing people putting forward positive messages in terms of I think you should vote for this candidate as opposed to you should vote for everyone but that candidate. So that maybe is a good thing. Maybe that's a sign that when you don't have ranked choice voting, you don't have as much negativity.
It could be. It could be. There's that. I don't think you can't knock that they've tried something different. If it's not working, then, there's no need to stick to it. Go back to it before if there's no benefit to it. But, so we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, because look,
VA.
here's the thing. Whoever wins the mayor's race in New York, I mean, there was speculation before that maybe Mamdani can hit 50%. I think it's unlikely. It seems
Mm,
like the most likely scenario is you're going to get a winner, and that winner will not have the majority of voters. They'll have the plurality of voters, right? And then
mm.
that leaves a question about what kind of mandate do they have, and does that even matter? I don't know, but you see a lot of political
What do you
journalists.
mean? What kind of mandate do they have?
So a lot of people will talk about not just who won an election by the margin by which they won, right? And the
Mhm.
implication is if they won by a big margin, that indicates that a larger portion of the population supports their agenda, right? And so
Right,
if a candidate were to come in and say, I want to do all these different things, A, B, C, D, and then like 90% of the people voted for that, right? That's a pretty clear signal that most people are on board with those things.
mhm.
Whereas if a candidate promises or wants to do certain things and they just kind of win with the plurality, right? They got 43%, but happen to be more than the other two candidates, then there's a question mark, over the popularity of their agenda. Now, on the one hand, they still won, and so they get to put forward
Right,
their plans as if they would have won with 100% of the votes. A win is a win. On the other hand, it does show that most of the population, or maybe a large portion of the population, still doesn't agree. They're not quite on board with what they're trying to do. Um,
right.
that's what they call a mandate, right? And again, I
Right.
don't really know how significant that is because, like we said, they win, they get into office, and then they get to do what they do in office, regardless of the margin of victory. But I guess it's some kind of measure as to how popular, how much consensus their ideas have.
Right. And the reason why I asked that because
Mm-hmm.
people talk about that a lot, right? Oh, this is what the people mandated, voted for me to do when I get in here. And but the reality also is not just because of, they could have just the more votes. Maybe they didn't have 50%, but also because you're in office now and you are representative of everyone, even the people who voted against
Yeah.
you.
Right.
And so some people mandated you to go there, or some people voted for your agenda, but you do have a responsibility now to everyone
Mm.
that's there.
And think
And you
about that,
need to
right?
take that into consideration too.
That's a very good point, right? Like, imagine Mamdani does win, but he wins with, I don't know, 42%, 43%, which would mean that the majority of people actually voted against him and by extension his ideas. Now he would be in office trying to push ideas that the people kind of rejected in a sense, but he still won. So it'd be kind of like a weird scenario. And that's just an example for anyone who won without 50%, right? Like
Right.
the majority of the people were against you, but you're still pushing these ideas as if they won. But they did get more support than the other ideas, just which just wasn't a majority. You know what I mean? Just wasn't a majority. So.
Right. So it's like at that point, as the elected official at that point,
Mm-hmm.
do you push forward 100% with those ideals, or do you kind of
Right.
temper them and look for negotiation that kind of appeases others that you represent as well, that brings them in as well? Or do you just bull
Right.
rush your way
Right.
through with what you came
Right.
with?
Because you said their job is to represent everyone, including the people who voted against them. And now
Right,
they're in a position where there were actually more people who voted against them than for them. Imagine that. They won the
right.
election, but there are more people who voted against them than for them. So most of their constituents are against the ideas that they were elected to do. It's a weird situation. And I think it's an
Yeah, I
argument for
think
ranked choice voting, actually, right? At least you get the majority in some way.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, technically, I think that's true, but I wonder if the language sounds better if it's like not that they voted against you, because if there were other candidates, they were
Right.
voting for other candidates.
Sure.
It doesn't necessarily mean it was a negative slight against you. They just like
Yeah.
this maybe a little bit more.
Right.
So the
And
language sounds
it
a little
depends
bit
probably on, yeah,
misrepresentative.
it would depend on the dynamics of that election and what
Sure.
the other candidates stood for, right? How diametrically opposed they were, et cetera, et cetera. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like in this case, I do think it kind of is breaking down to, well, do you want Mamdani's brand of socialism or something else, right? I think
Right,
Cuomo and Sliwa both stand for some kind of capitalism, maybe one more conservative than the other. But so
right.
you could look at it like that, right? Like if he won with a
Yeah,
plurality, the majority of the
sure.
people didn't want his socialism, at least. But um,
Right.
from a political science perspective, from an elections perspective, maybe it comes into play when you start thinking about re-election, right? Like
Right.
if a candidate comes in and they get elected, now they're in their first term, but the voters didn't sign on all the way with the agenda, maybe that
Right.
might suggest they should proceed with caution because if they push it too hard, they'll be unpopular and maybe not win re-election. And so,
Right. Right.
whereas if they come in and everyone's on board, then that gives them kind of permission to just go wild with it because everyone liked it, right?
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like you now the work kind of begins, right? The
Mm.
election is tough, but you're in office now, and now you've got to figure out how to execute in
Yeah.
a way
Oh,
that
believe me.
keeps the people, that benefits the people, keeps them happy, and especially if you're looking to come and run again, you've got to, navigate those
I
waters.
had I had that same experience a few times, most notably in law school when I won the election for class delegate, right, to represent my
Mm.
class in student government in law school, right? You have this feeling of euphoria. Wow, I won. Oh my God, I won. And then immediately after, it's like, damn, now what?
Right.
Like now the work begins. What do I do? Like,
Right. Yeah.
so not so much so, but similar to when I was just elected chair of Queen's Defenders, right? You get this feeling of, oh, great, this is great, I'm the chair, and then it's like, Now I gotta do stuff. I gotta do chair things, right? And then
Now I got to do stuff.
yeah, like
Yeah.
the high wears off, and
Yeah.
then it's like, okay, now it's
The
like,
responsibility kicks
right,
in.
the burden kicks in. Now it's time to get down to business. Now you got to answer all these emails and all these different people trying to figure out what's going on. Right now you're really in charge of stuff, and so yeah,
Right.
now the work happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, yeah, it'll be interesting. What do you think about? So there have been a report, and it's probably an anecdotal report, and it's
Mhm.
I don't know how much I take it seriously, but um, where I don't know if it was news, it said there's 1 million New Yorkers said they would leave if Mandani became elected.
Yeah, and my question is: are a million people vote? Maybe so. Maybe because at first I was like, it's wild because you don't even get that many people voting in a mayoral election, but this time you are, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense, right? Like if 2 million people are voting, probably somewhere close to a million would be voting for him and a million against. So maybe, but does that mean everyone who's voting against him is going to leave? No, come on.
1 million people
Yeah.
are going to leave. Now,
Nah.
now, to be
But you know what? People
fair,
always say that though. People say that,
right.
when a president gets elected, they're going to move out of the country, and very few people do.
Right, yeah, and we've seen that, right? They said it with if Obama won, if Trump won, if Biden won, like it's kind of contrite at this point.
Sure.
Um,
It's the boy who cried wolf, or
yeah, it's attention,
never
it's
mind.
attention seeking,
I
is
don't
what
know. I
it
was trying
is.
to think of a take on that. The boy who cried uh, pigeon.
Relocation?
Yeah, yeah. I guess what bird flies south for the winter, right? They're gonna fly to Florida. I don't know, but yeah, people don't really do it.
Yeah, this was a New York Post article.
And I saw
There
one
was
that
a
also said
poll.
800. Yeah, one said a million, one said 800,000. You know,
Yeah.
with that
Now
said,
to be
with that said, right, when that many people are threatening to do it, you're going to get more people to do it than usual. Right?
yeah, and here's the thing though, like there has been a kind of a fleeing of high earners from New York for several years now.
Not
Now
just
that
high earners, no, not just yes, but not just that. Also, middle class people who say
right,
they can't afford it anymore because of
right.
ability.
So
It's crazy. Yeah,
let's say Mamdani wins and that trend continues.
right.
I'm sure opposition is going to latch onto that and be like, "See, he made
Yep.
New Yorkers
Oh yeah.
leave."
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Without question. Without question. He is going to become, if he wins, the face of the Democratic Party going into the midterms next year. And yeah, they're going to take whatever they can and spin it to try to make him look bad to help
right.
Republicans.
Yeah. So it's yeah.
All right.
I don't know.
So as we're refreshing the results here, the Democratic candidate in Virginia is still ahead. All right. I've got 57% to 43% right now,
Right.
with
Now,
24% in. So that's pretty significant. But again, we don't know exactly which counties were counted yet.
right. Right. Um, and there was a post, a mutual that we know, Jay
Mhm.
Smooth, has been a culture commentator,
Mhm.
um, hip hop guy, definitely up on politics. He posted, his picture of him with the I voted sticker, and he said tomorrow, we tomorrow we start holding him to the bar he established. So he's a Mamdani guy.
Right.
But I think this is a great quote because a lot of people forget that, it doesn't end when you vote. They get in office, now you're supposed to, even if they're your guy, you have to
Right.
hold them accountable to what they said they were going to do or, the promises that they gave.
Hold their feet to the fire. Absolutely.
Hold their feet to the fire. So like, yeah, you could be 100% like it's a Mamdani guy or Cuomo guy. Once they get in, okay, are they going to do what they said to benefit New Yorkers? If not, then,
Right.
don't hold loyalty.
Right. 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 And a lot of people are saying that some of these ideas might sound good on paper, but for whatever reason aren't practical. Maybe, for example,
Right.
the support from the state won't be there, right? Other stakeholders who have to approve some of these things. And,
Right.
I think people need to be realistic about that and say, if we voted for that because we thought it could happen, and he said he would, do what he could to make it happen, well, where are the results?
Right. And I think that happens to all politicians, right? They come in and they have these ideas, and then when they get in, some of the reality is that, like you said, the support may not be there from some critical places, and then so they can't do it even if they're trying to do it,
Hmm.
and then they get blamed for not following through,
Well,
and they
but
don't people don't
yeah,
see the extenuating circumstances sometimes.
sure, but they should also know what is plausible and what isn't, right? Not
Right,
saying that you can't have any bold ideas, but
right,
if you come in and you promise the world, knowing that you're not going to be able to deliver the world, that does, I
right.
think, fall on you too, right? Like you should have some kind of expectation, like that's realistic, right? And you could maybe try
Sure.
to push the boundaries a little bit, right? And try to, but you shouldn't
Yeah,
overpromise.
don't go
You
overboard.
shouldn't overpromise. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah. And like you said, it's very real. Like the support may not be there. I mean, Eric Adams faced that when dealing with the migrant crisis, where he didn't get the support that he was asking for from the state or the federal government to help temper that influx of over 100,000 sudden immigrants into New York and the strain that it was putting on the budget.
Hmm.
So, it can definitely happen.
Yeah, and let's not forget Eric Adams' name is still on the ballot. Some people were confused by that, but he withdrew after the deadline to take himself
Mm,
off. So he really should have gone sooner, because what's going to happen is there are going to be people voting Eric Adams. Not a whole lot, right? But it is going to be a number. And so that's going to hurt Cuomo, right? Everyone just assumes, all of Adams' votes are going to Cuomo. Adams endorsed Cuomo. All right, what if a few thousand people still vote for Eric Adams? Those are a few thousand that
right,
Cuomo could have got. You know what I mean?
right.
So there's something to think about as well. I think it was Elon Musk who posted the ballot. And he called New York City ballot a scam. Did you see that one
Oh,
or hear about it?
he just no, he needs to shut up is what he needs to do. But
So number one, he was like, certain candidates' names appear more than once. Yeah, that's how New York does it. Now, I've been critical of that system too, but in New York, we have something called fusion voting, which was supposed to help the smaller parties, right? So, like, we
right,
had the Working Families Party, and so on the right, they've got the Conservative Party, for example. Um, in order to keep these parties active, they need to maintain a certain number of votes. In particular, when the governor's race comes up, that's how their support is kind of measured, right? How many votes did people, if they put up a candidate for governor, how many people voted for that candidate on that party line? And so what they do in New York is they have, or at least they give you the ability to run under more than one party line. So if you're the Democratic candidate, you could run as the Working Families Party candidate as well. People could vote for you on that line, right? If you're a Republican,
hmm,
you could do conservative. You could also have your own independent body, right, that you make up. Same way you would get signatures to run as a Democrat or Republican, you would do so for your independent party that you made up.
hmm,
And you see that, right? You've got the Republican nominee, the Democratic nominee, and then a bunch of other things on there as well, other candidates. In some cases, those same names repeat because they're with more than one party, or in some cases, independent body. So that's what fusion voting is. They add those all up, but it's not like, people were all kinds of confused about it. They're saying that, oh, that means that you can vote for the same person twice and they get twice as many votes. No, no, it's still
hmm,
one vote. You can choose to vote for them on one of
right,
their lines, but you still only vote for them once. And then, so for example, with Mamdani, they'll add up all his Democratic votes with his Working Families votes, but his total is going to be the sum of the votes he gets on those lines. But as a voter, you can't just bubble in his name more than once, right? It's just you pick one of
right,
those lines and then they get it added. All the votes get added in. So the reason why Cuomo's name wasn't, because that's what he also sees. If Cuomo's name was like all the way on the right, yeah, it's because he wasn't running in the general election as a Democrat
right,
or Republican. He was one of the independent candidates, and there are others too. It wasn't just him. Like we said, Eric
right,
Adams is still on there. Jim Walden is still. There are other people still on the ballot. So
right.
that's something people are kind of overlooking, right? I think they thought when they went to vote, because of the media coverage, they thought they were going to see Mamdani, Sliwa, Cuomo, take your pick, go home, right? But that's not how it works.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So what do you think Walden's chances are?
Like I mentioned before, I actually did some work for Walden, and I like Walden. He dropped out too formally, by the way. He knew he had no chance,
Right. Yeah.
but still on the ballot, right? And we'll get
Yeah.
a non-zero number of votes. So that's something to keep in mind. It may not matter, but if it's a very close race between Mamdani and Cuomo, maybe that's the kind of stuff will matter, right? Maybe you'll be looking at like, oh man, if all those other candidates weren't on the ballot anymore, Cuomo could have caught up. Who knows how it plays out?
You know what? Maybe I should go on to like Threads right now and just until polls close, go on like a campaign of having getting people to write my name in and see how many votes I can get in this time. This
in
time.
in an hour and 6 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. Just go write this in. Write in candidate. Go do it right now. Yeah.
So
Um,
we've been talking about the New York City mayor's race. I did send you something regarding a New York City council race here in Queens, which I found interesting.
right.
That was a flyer. Apparently, it was texted to voters in Ridgewood, Queens, in particular Democrats in Ridgewood, Queens. Now, this city council race is very wild. It's very unique. Let's put it like that, because it's pitting two staffers of the same council member. In fact, it's the council member who's termed out, Bob Holden, right? He's got his two staffers running against each other for the seat. And he endorsed both of them, right? Although there was some controversy over one of them said, no, he endorsed me more, or whatever. No, he's sticking to the fact that he endorsed both of them. But this campaign has gotten more ugly than people had hoped for, given the fact that it's two staffers in the same office running against each other, right? They had said it would be a friendly campaign. Well, this flyer that was texted out came from the Republican candidate's campaign. In fact, if you look at the actual message, it has her campaign committee there. Now, what makes this especially peculiar is that the campaign isn't attacking, the Republican isn't attacking the Democrat for being too liberal or, being cool with Mamdani or Cuomo or any of that. The Republican is accusing the Democrat here of being a MAGA supporter, of being Trump Sliwa,
Mm,
right? Now, mind
mm,
you, the Republican is very much pro Trump and pro Sliwa. In fact, has been campaigning all around town with Sliwa, right? So it isn't like it's some kind of criticism that's legitimate, I guess, or sincere, right? It's kind of a sleight of hand because it's targeted to Democrats in Ridgewood, and that is known to be the progressive pocket of the district. And so the
mm,
appeal there is, or the hope is that not that these progressive Democrats in Ridgewood are going to vote for the Republican because they figure, that's probably not in the cards, but that they won't vote for the Democrat either by saying that the Democrat is MAGA and Sliwa and blah, blah, blah. So what do you make of that? It's a very odd thing.
So the clearly MAGA guy is
It's a
trying to
woman in this case.
demonize
Yeah.
the other person for being MAGA.
Right. Which I'm not even sure that they are. Right. Now, here's the deal. So the Democrat is known as the more conservative Democrat, right? They both work for Bob
Mm,
Holden, who himself is known to be a conservative Democrat. In fact, he ran for office and won the first time as a Republican, right? But now says he's a Democrat, always been a Democrat. But, he's very conservative as far as Democrats go. So
mm,
there, from what I understand, there were people in Ridgewood, right, in that progressive pocket, who
mm,
were skeptical of this Democratic nominee because of his affiliations, because they think he's too conservative for them. Kind of like how we saw, the Bernie bros refuse to vote for Hillary and that kind of thing, right? Not
right,
enough of a progressive for their taste. And so
right,
a lot of them were going to either write in someone else, but write a cat's name, skip that election altogether, right? Just refuse to vote on principle for either candidate. They weren't voting Republican, but they thought the Democrat wasn't enough of a Democrat for their liking. So
right.
this tactic now is really meant to nudge them in that direction, right? It's to say you can't support your Democratic nominee because he's not Democratic enough. But
Mm,
again, the weird thing about that is it's coming directly from the Republican who is all those things that they're accusing the Democrat of being.
right.
It's
Yeah,
not coming
it's
from a PAC or some outside group or like some wink, wink, like, we're not saying it's us, but no, it's literally coming from that campaign committee. You could read. In fact, I'm going to pull it
right.
up right now. I never saw something
It's
like this.
strange.
It's
And,
strange.
and what do you think the goal is of this person? What do you think their thinking is
The
in
goal,
sending this out?
the goal is to win the election.
I mean, what do you think their thinking is in using this as a strategy?
Just what I said, that these progressive Democrats in Ridgewood are going to see this and they're going to not vote for the Democratic nominee, which is going to help the Republican because the Republican is going to have support in the other parts of the district, which are more conservative.
But you think that they're thinking that this will make those blue voters just stay home?
We're not going to stay home because they are out in large numbers for Mamdani. But yeah, they're thinking that they're going to skip that race on the ballot or write in someone or do something else, but not pick the Democrat.
It sounds like a Hail Mary. I mean, if they're already there at the ballot,
Mm-hmm.
the chance that this is going to influence them to just not fill in that bubble next to the bubbles they're already filling in, it sounds like a Hail Mary play to me.
Well, here's the thing: it was sent via a text message to targeted Democrats in Ridgewood. Text messages don't exactly cost a whole lot to send, so
Right.
I don't know how desperate it is in that sense. They might just think it's going to help convince those Democrats, who, by the way, were already talking, right? There's already chatter amongst them that they shouldn't vote for this Democrat because he's not, he hasn't passed the purity test, right? We've seen that before. So
Right,
it was
which
kind of
is
like,
which is
yeah,
one of the
you guys are
weaknesses
right.
of
He's
the
not pure enough.
Democrats.
Yeah, yeah. He's not. So they're trying to take advantage. They're preying on an effect, right? On a thing that really does exist. It's not like they're trying to engineer something, some new strategy, right? Some new angle that's unexplored. Like, no, this really
Right,
is a thing. This is a phenomenon, and they're just
right,
trying to take advantage of it.
right. So,
Yeah, and they're basically trying to frustrate these Democrats into not voting for either of those candidates.
right.
But it does come off as, well, to me, I mean, I guess I'll ask your opinion on that. Does that come off as disingenuous for them to say you can't vote for Phil Wong because he's pro-Trump and pro-Sliwa? And by the way, I'm not sure if he is. So if he's not, that's really disingenuous. But let's assume that even if he was, would that be disingenuous to put that message out there to these voters, knowing that you yourself support those same candidates?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just kind of that mudslinging, right? Like it's hypocritical mudslinging. I think we see a lot of now in the age of Trump,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
demonizing things that you have done or are doing
I'm
yourself.
still doing, or still doing.
Yeah,
Yeah. So here it is. I just pulled up the
like
text.
walking out in the middle of the street and complaining that people are not crossing at the crosswalk. Like, like
Yeah. So here it is. Just so everyone knows, if you look at the image, right on the bottom, it says paid for by Alicia V for NYC. Right, Alicia is a candidate, Republican candidate. That is her campaign committee. Right. The picture says "Stop MAGA Phil Wong." It's a picture of Phil Wong, the Democratic nominee, next to Trump and Sliwa. And then the text in this message says, "Do you know the real Phil Wong? He loves Donald Trump and Curtis Sliwa. Phil Wong says one thing and does another, just like a typical politician. Send President Trump a message by voting against Phil Wong for city council. Reply stop to end." Now, I'm
but you're a
sure,
Trump supporter.
right, the person who put this out is a Trump supporter and a big Curtis Lewa supporter. I'm sure if you were to ask her, though, or her people about this, they'll probably say something like, well, she's not hiding who she is. She's really a Republican, but you can't trust Phil Wong because he wants you to believe he's a Democrat, and yet he really is conservative.
Well, I think also like here's the thing. If you look at it,
Mm-hmm.
the paid for by Alicia for NYC
Right.
is is not very prominent, right? It probably it probably passes whatever the requirements are for identification, but it's not very prominent. So if you
Mm-hmm.
look at it, it could just look like it's coming from anyone, just saying, look, Phil Wong's a MAGA guy. You don't
And
even
that's
look
that's
at
the
that it's
thing.
coming from
Yes.
someone that's
Yes.
MAGA themselves.
Yes.
It's
They
just
want you. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. The way it's designed, the way it's laid out, they want the viewer, the recipient, to think it's coming from a progressive Democrat.
yes. And it could easily come off that way. I mean, because
Yeah.
the paid for is like
Hmm.
it's not even a bright white. It's kind
Right.
of fades in with the blue on Wong's jacket a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could look like it's coming from one of your peers. Like we're progressive Democrats. Don't vote for him. He's MAGA. Like what's
Hmm.
going on?
That's exactly how it is designed to look.
Yeah.
However, there it's funny, right? Because there could be some plausible deniability there. Because if you read through it, it's like, well, we never said we were progressives. We never said we weren't Republicans. We're just saying you can't trust him for these reasons, right? So
Right.
I'm sure that would be their explanation. Oh no, we're just Republicans saying we're not saying we're not that. We're just saying you can't trust him because he's like in sheep's clothing type thing.
Yeah.
So
And there is kind of a logic, I guess, there. It's like, well, do you want the candidate that's lying to your face, or do you
right,
want the candidate who just is open about not liking you? Like, what do you, it's,
right, right, right. Yeah.
so yeah, I think they're trying to get, slip it past people that it's theirs and make it seem like it's from a progressive or someone on their side warning
Mhm.
them not to go for Phil Wong.
And this is a microcosm of what we talked about before, right? Where we said, oh, we think of New Jersey as a blue state, Virginia as a blue state, but really it depends on the locale, right? The actual geographical location within. And you're seeing that even here in this New York City Council district, right? Not even the entire district being one thing as a part of the city. No, the council district itself has conservative and progressive areas, and they're trying to micro target, to shift the electorate in these particular areas one way or another.
Right, right. Shout out to James in the chat, Shelly in the chat.
Thank you for joining us. Looks like CNN has officially called now the Virginia
Oh.
governor's race for the Democratic candidate Abigail Spanberger.
Yeah, they're projecting her to win, but it's only 39% of the votes are in, but they're projecting that she's going to be the winner. Now, the
That's
attorney
what we
general's
said.
race is
We like we said. People sometimes ask about that. How could they have a rejected winner with only 39% in? Because they have a lot of data, right? They know which
right,
precincts are still outstanding and what those votes are likely to be, or at least which way they're likely to trend.
right. And the attorney general and the lieutenant governor's race are still up in the air with the Democrat candidate for each leading the pack, but not by much. Um, the attorney general one has been bouncing between like 50-50 for like the past 10, 15 minutes. Now that Jay Jones has taken a little bit of a lead, but again, things can change as these numbers keep coming in.
And in New Jersey, Democrat Mikey Sherrill is ahead of Jack Ciattarelli. So far, I'm on point with my predictions, right?
Yes, yes.
I did say Democrats would win those. Now, one thing that happened in the primary that we got somewhat wrong, I think, if you recall,
What? We didn't get anything wrong.
well, if you recall, we thought that maybe it would take a bit of time to know the winner of the primary because it seemed like it was going to
Mm-hmm.
be a pretty close race. And in fact, we knew that night that Mamdani had won and Cuomo conceded pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So we deal with a similar situation now where it could take a long time, but we don't know how close it's going to be coming out of tonight, right? I mean, it's
Right.
possible that Mamdani or even Cuomo is ahead by a comfortable enough margin to declare victory. But if
Mm-hmm.
it's close, right, if it's within a few percentage points, then you still have to count the absentee votes and so forth.
Sure.
So we don't know. I think it is likely we'll have a winner tonight, but we don't know. We just don't. We won't know until we know.
That's right. And they better count those votes because my ballot was mailed in. So they better
That's
make sure it gets
you're
in
talking
there.
about. You're talking about Virginia, right? You're not a New York City voter.
No, not New York City,
Yeah,
Virginia.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I made sure to get my vote in. So
Okay. Well, one thing I wanted to talk about, and this has nothing to do with politics, so
right. De-stress a little bit.
yeah, I saw something.
Or maybe not.
Right, I saw something on Facebook, and I don't know why I'm seeing these now because I don't engage in that type of content. Right, usually the algorithm they say will show you the kind of thing that you're looking at. I
Right.
don't. I've never engaged in that kind of thing, but I've seen it recently. There's one particular group or page on Facebook that keeps coming up. It's called Bad Roommate. Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Well, I sent you the link to it. They'll often, and I think what they're doing is they're pulling from old Reddit posts, if I'm not mistaken,
Uh-huh.
and they're just reposting them to this Facebook page as if they're new, right? As if someone is like seeking advice or something like that. So you have all these comments on there saying, you should do this, you should do this, not realizing that that was a post maybe like 2 years ago on Reddit, right?
Right. Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
getting a lot of engagement on the page, right? So it's, I guess it's similar to what we just talked about with that political ad, right? Like a little sleight of hand trick, but it's
Right.
effective whether or not it's ethical. You know what I mean? So a lot of people are engaging with this content, and I saw one that was talking about asking questions of someone you've matched with on a dating site, whether or not it's ethical. Whoa! So I sent it to you. I don't know if you got
Right.
the link. Did you see
Yeah, I'm,
it?
I'm
Okay,
looking at it right now.
looking at it now. Okay. The premise here is people match on these dating sites, right? Tinder, Bumble, whatever. And they start talking to each other. And sometimes people get frustrated or fed up with the conversation if they don't think it's going to their liking. And this was an example of that, where the person seemed to be annoyed that their match or their would-be date was asking them too many questions. And they seemed to
Right.
turn the conversation into an interview or an interrogation, right? And I just found it interesting. Again, I'm scrolling through my Facebook feed and this pops up, and I'm like, what is this all about? And I'm watching it, and I'm reading the comments, and it seems like a lot of people in the comments seem to think that was the only way to have a conversation with someone that you've matched with or that you're going to date or you're interested in or whatever. Like you have to just ask a series of back and forth questions, and I kind of differ with that, right? Like, and I think I even put a comment like maybe it's where I'm from in New York, but we kind of are suspicious of people who just ask us question after question. So, what are you, a cop? You know what I mean? Like, we don't really like that. Just rubs us the wrong way. And I think you can get to know someone, and it doesn't have to be a date. You can even be a friend, anyone, right? Like, you don't have to make it an interview. I think when someone wants to volunteer information, that they will. On the other hand, I guess I understand where some of these younger folks are coming from if they've only met people, if they've only dated online. It isn't like it was in the old days where maybe you're getting to know someone in person over the course of months or years, right? It's like you're trying to decide if you want to go out on a date with them, if you want to even meet them. And so maybe they feel like they've got to just kind of force the pertinent information out before they go any further. I don't know, but I do see why people get annoyed with the persistent questioning.
Well, I think it depends, right? You gotta get you're trying to get information. You're trying to learn about someone. A
Yeah.
profile only has so much information, and a lot of times it's ambiguous because people don't want to either they just don't feel comfortable writing it or they're not good at writing that. So you talk to them, and
Right.
I'm looking at the post here, and I don't see I don't see a red flag from this person? Like she said she was moving, and then his
Uh,
follow-up question was, "How long do you have left here?" And she's like, "Well, why would you ask that?" Well, you just said you're leaving.
well, see, my read on it, so again, to the specifics of this particular post, was the person seemed to get defensive because at least they took it like the other person was asking them if they were moving because they couldn't afford to have a house anymore or something like that. And they thought it was like either gold digging or just prying too much into their finances at this early stage.
But they didn't ask anything about finances. The question was, you know, are you moving up or moving out of here? And then the person responded that they're selling the house,
Right,
they're going
right. So
back to
that I
renting.
think that was taken. Are you moving up? Yeah, yeah, right, right. Are you moving up?
And
Like
then
as
they
if
said,
are you
what do
buying a
you
mansion
do? How
somewhere
long do
or
you
are you
have
moving
left?
into a little apartment? Right, but I think it was are you moving up or moving out of here that probably rubbed them the wrong way. Like trying to think like are you buying a better house? Like why are you leaving your house? Are you saying you can't afford it anymore? Like that. But again, those are just semantics. Those are just details.
I think
I
this
think
person, I think the person that
to me it's just the persistent prying questions that get annoying.
Yeah,
You
I
know.
can see that. In this particular case, to me, I think the person who was asking the question dodged a red flag because this person seems
I
would
like the
seem very
response.
annoying.
I like
But
the response. They're like, go date someone who won't ask you a question with every new message or something like that. Where I want to date
um,
someone. What they? I don't have it in front of me. What they say? Something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that was basically what she said. Because he said the reason why he asked that was because you're on a dating app and I'm trying to understand where you are in life.
Hmm.
And she said, well, go find somebody who wants to answer a new question for every single time that you message them.
I feel that though. And by the way, are we sure who's the guy and who's the girl
We're
on it?
not.
Okay.
I don't think we are here. I'm just
Yeah.
assuming that it's the guy.
Hmm.
And
I
maybe there's
kind of read
something
it.
to be.
I kind of read it the other way though. I kind of thought the guy was
Really?
getting defensive. Yeah. But maybe I'm projecting because I'm a guy and I find it odd when I get a lot of questions. But I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. Now, on the flip side, I think people would tend to go into question mode when they're not getting a lot of conversation from the other side. Like
Yeah.
in a conversation, you have to pick up your end of the deal. Like that's how
Right.
it works. And if one person has the responsibility for keeping this conversation going, then it's going to be like pulling teeth. And then you're going to end up with questions.
Yeah. But see, if it was me, I don't think I would necessarily resort to that because that almost seems like a cheap trick, like you're trying to force it, right? To me,
Well,
you should.
then you make the decision, okay, well, look, obviously you're not interested in this
Yeah.
conversation, so I'm going to peace out.
That's what I'm
But
saying. So if you start asking questions, it's like you're admitting the person's not really interested in talking, so you're just trying to force it to continue.
I mean, it could be. We don't know how long they've been talking
All
here.
right.
I'm assuming at least a couple of his sentences before this, but he could have been flooding with a ton of questions, or this could have been just the first stages where you're gonna ask a couple of questions.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm not saying you can never ask anyone a question, but it just seems to me like people are starting to feel like that's the only way to have a conversation. And it might actually suggest subpar conversation skills if you can't talk to someone without just being a series of questions. It shouldn't be a job interview. You know what I mean? Especially if you're trying to date someone, you would think
Yeah,
you'd want to keep some mystique, some intrigue there, right? Not everything needs to be known up front. I'll, I'll share something about my personal life when I'm ready to, you
sure.
know?
Yeah.
Like I think of it
I
even
think
like to draw the analogy to politics, right? If someone will like start sending me private messages and saying, are you endorsing this candidate or are you going to announce this? I'm like, there's a reason why I haven't done it publicly, right? Like if I'm going to make an endorsement, I'm going to do it publicly. If I'm going to announce a campaign, I'm going to announce it when I'm ready. That's not something people should be trying to pry out of you. I guess it's a reporter's job to try to, but like, do your friends got to do it? Do random people got to do it? You know what I mean? I
I
feel
think
like in
it
general, like
depends.
you share something when you're ready to share it. It should be forced out of you.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends. With a chat conversation,
Hmm.
you don't have the physical cues and the body language and all these other things that go into a conversation
Yeah.
to draw from. The environment, right? Where you could pivot to something else and be like, oh wow, hey, look what's going on over there. Wow, and start making different conversation. You don't have that. It's we're here in this text box and this is
Mhm.
all we've got.
Yeah.
So I think
But you can still
there's
get, I don't know, I think you can still get a lot of information. You can learn a lot about the person by doing it organically and not just be like, question one, what is your name? Question two, where are you from? Question three, where do you live? Question four, what
yeah.
do you do? Like if you just have a natural conversation with someone, they'll start opening up and sharing things with you. And you can respond with a joke, you can give your own experience, you can relate to what they're saying. You know what I mean? Like someone can say they're having a bad day, you don't have to ask them, what is your job and what is the location of you? You don't have to ask, you know what I mean? You don't have to respond that way. You can be like, oh man, like I feel that I also had a bad day, and then like
Well,
they'll kind of open up.
now you just turn the focus back on yourself. That's a red
But
flag.
it's not though. It's mutual. It's mutual. It's not like it's always about yourself. It's relating to the person, and they can be like, yeah, like I had a day from hell. Let me tell you about what my boss said today. So, you know what I mean? Like they'll volunteer when they're ready to volunteer and say what they want to say, and you can still learn a lot. And also, by the way, you're learning now about their priorities, right? You're learning about how comfortable they are sharing what they want to share, what's important to them, right?
Sure.
You're not going to learn that if it's just an interview. I don't think it's an interrogation, and to me, it's awkward, and it's especially in a dating context because I saw it on Facebook, right? I think it kind of takes the fun out of it, but just in general, right? In life, like
Yeah,
to have a
I
good
get that.
conversation with someone, you don't have to just ask them 1,000 questions. We'll
Yeah, I
do it.
get
Like
that.
every once in a while, we'll do that on here, right? Like, oh, what do you think about that? But like our conversation isn't just question after question after question.
Right, sure. I
Yeah.
mean, I hope you're not trying to date me, but
No,
I
but that's
think
what I'm
some
saying.
of it,
Like it's not just in a dating context. Like it's a general principle.
right. I think also some of it, and this is one of the, I guess, an issue or an observation that I've had where, and it could be the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years, something like that, where people have gotten more in kind of an isolationist mode where, you know, don't just come to my house. Don't call me. Text me if you want to do anything, or send some kind of warning first before trying to even instigate any sort of contact. Like it's people have gotten so in their own bubbles. Like, how dare you try to reach out and communicate with me,
Right, right.
and disturb my aloneness? Like, I, I detest that. And so I kind of pick up a little bit of that in this exchange.
Mm,
And I think that probably also can contribute to people feeling like they don't, why do I have to answer any questions? Well, I mean, because we're talking right now. I mean, sure, it can be excessive,
right.
but just anything in general, like,
Yeah,
chill
but
out.
that's yeah, but see, if you were to go back in the day, right, like the '90s, '80s, or whatever, and I guess it may be regional as well. I feel like if you were on a date in New York City in
Yeah, you
1990,
don't grill them.
right, you were to ask them a bunch of questions the same way you
Yeah.
see with online dating now, the person will get very uncomfortable and make some kind of wisecrack, like, "What are you, a cop? Like, why are you asking me
Yeah,
this?"
yeah, yeah,
You
absolutely.
know?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not talking about grilling them, like
Yeah,
you said, like an interview or a police interrogation.
right.
But I think a lot of people kind of close themselves off. And I think it has to do a lot with our communication styles today, where people
Hmm.
do more communication via text than actual phone calls,
Hmm.
or face to face communication. And they feel like, you know, yeah, there's a wall here. You can't communicate with me any other way than through text message, and then I'll decide if I'm going to respond or not.
Hmm.
And it's like, you're
I
kind
think,
of being a
yeah.
dick.
I think part of it is people are so attached to their phones. Their whole life is their phone, right? So that's like
Yeah.
their worldview, right? Like that's just all they're focused on. It's just this little box, this little square in front of them, and
Yeah.
so they're doing whatever they do, right? They're banking, they're reading the news, their entertainment, right? Their music, it's all right here, and so it comes off as intrusive when someone will uh, either call them or basically take over this device that they're directing all their
Yeah.
attention to, because now it's taking them out of whatever they were doing and it's forcing them to pay attention to this other thing. Whereas
Right.
that wasn't a problem before, right? Like if you're not glued to your phone all the time, a call isn't necessarily going to stop everything you're doing. I mean, it could if you direct your attention to it, but it doesn't like shut off your screen, right? And like take you out immediately out of your activity, whether you want it to or not.
Right. And I think for me personally, if someone calls and I get that feeling like, oh, Jesus, this is a chore, it's more about the person themselves than about the mode of communication. Like, if it's someone that you're not really interested in talking
I
to, maybe
don't.
they're boring on the
Well,
phone, maybe,
it could be right, but if you're in the middle of something important and you're using your phone and
sure.
you just can't, yeah,
Yeah, well, you just don't answer.
right. But you
Right?
see why people get, but you see
Or
why
you
people
pick
will
up
get
and say, "Hey, I'm
annoyed,
busy. Let me call you
right?
back."
Right. But people, I think, just that's why psychologically people would get annoyed because they feel like the other person expects their attention. Because then they'll come back with, well, you have your phone on you all the time, so how come you're not answering me? You know?
Right. Yeah, and that's yeah. It's like, yeah, because maybe I was doing something else at the
Right.
time.
Right. And by the way, I
Um,
don't keep my phone on me all the time, especially when I'm home. Yeah, when I'm out, I carry my phone, right? And then I'll
right,
check it from time to time. But when I'm home and I'm working on things, right? Like,
right,
like today I was working on several different cases of mine. My phone was tucked away somewhere. In fact, it was off because it was the battery ran out and it was charging in the other room for part of the day. But that's common, right? I won't be looking at my phone because I'm working on other things. A lot of people have this expectation now that people are just always looking at their phone. Like, no,
right,
I have a life outside of that. My phone isn't, being used all the time.
right. Because everyone's, I mean, because of the phone, everyone's accessible in 1,000 different ways at all times. So people expect them to respond in those ways. My phone, I do keep it with me. I do travel. I do spend probably way more time on it than I should. Um, but I always have the ringer off. And
Me
so
too. Yeah.
I may not see the message come through. I may not
Right.
hear it come through, you
Right.
know. And so it could take a while for me to get back to you sometimes because I'm not going to see it, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. And so I see some wild stuff, and it might be generational too. But I see
All
some
right.
people say, like, if someone doesn't text you back in 15 minutes, they're not interested in you. I might not see your text for 5 hours. It's
Right.
just different.
Yeah. And then, you know, it just could be you know, who knows what's going on, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think dating is tricky. Um, and then dating online through just chat,
Mhm.
especially that initial meeting, that's going to be tricky anyway. I think I assumed this person to be the guy asking the person asking the questions to be a man
Mhm.
because at the bottom they put LMFAO, I'm posting this on Reddit. And I just assume that
Oh,
it's a Reddit user that's and it's the a guy is probably the image of a Reddit
maybe,
person.
but there are
But it could be
definitely
the other way.
there are women who post to these groups on Reddit as well. I've seen that
Oh,
before.
sure, absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that's where my assumption came from.
gotcha. Well, and also someone mentioned in the comments that it was Bumble, I think, and they said that in that one the woman has to message first, but that doesn't show you who started the conversation, all right? Because it picks up somewhere in the middle, so you don't know who
Right.
messaged
That's what's kind of hilarious about that.
first.
Oh,
Yeah,
what's kind of hilarious about that is yes, Bumble, the thing with Bumble was that, you know, the woman has to initiate the conversation. So it was supposed to be more of a safer space for women so they don't
but if
get
but by the way, what if it's two women?
who I guess it's yeah, that's a good
Either
question.
one.
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
or
but
two
that
men.
was the
Can neither of them initiate if it's two?
yeah, I think maybe whoever likes last has to initiate,
I
right?
have
So if
no
you like
idea.
someone and then
No, but I know on Bumble though, if it's a male and a female, the woman gets to go first.
right, and I think
Yeah.
it was kind of to create the safe space because women get all kinds of just ridiculous messages from men on all of the dating apps. So it's like, okay, well, women are in control. But what's funny about about this is they've had to change it recently.
Really?
Yeah, because women started complaining they didn't want to be or want to have to be the one to start the
Mm,
conversation. They felt like the guy should start the conversation. Like
interesting.
even women they didn't want to take the lead. And this was supposed to be the whole point of the app, so they had to kind of change they had to kind of
Right.
change things
Well, then
recently.
that was the traditional way, right? For the man to take initiative and stuff like that. So maybe that's incorrect.
Right.
A
And
lot
they
of people.
felt like they should be chased.
Yeah.
And so they didn't feel like they felt uneasy about what should I say on the first thing? It's like, okay, well, welcome to the anxiety that men have to deal with, you know, and
Right.
have to deal with some of the nonsense like this comment at the bottom. I'm still assuming that it's a woman that was rejecting this
Mhm.
questioning. The comment at the bottom says, I'm more than likely make way more than you do, so it's not even a concern." Like that's just being a snotty for no reason.
Yeah, I'm not saying all that is necessary, but I understand. Like I said, I understand when people get a little annoyed at the question after question after question after question thing, and I'm wondering if certain people are missing out, right? Like you always see, like you said, dating
Could
is
be.
hard. A lot of people are saying, it's so impossible to find someone to date. I wonder if people are just turning each other off by turning what's supposed to be fun and
It could be.
adventurous into interviews and interrogations.
It
Like
could be. It could
let the
absolutely be.
magic happen. Let the magic build. You know what I mean? It doesn't need to be like you're forcing
Yeah.
every answer out. Just kind of chill out. Chill out a bit.
Yeah.
Right? Let things happen as they
Or
happen. Yeah.
or whip it out and just lay it on the table and see what happens
Whoa.
in the conversation.
Whoa.
You know? I mean, and that apply for women too. Just
Okay.
pop one out and just like see what happens to the conversation now. What direction do we go now? It's all awkward now. Like what are we gonna say? So who
Well,
knows? That's the bottom line.
In New Jersey, the woman is still going first, or at least running first, right? She is ahead of Mikey Sherrill is ahead of Jack Chitterelli by a significant margin, actually, as of now. But we'll
Significantly.
see. I expect, yeah, I expect this to tighten a bit as more votes come in.
Right. So, all right. Well, so what's the bottom line here, Mike?
Uh, you know what? Wait and see. I think wait and let things develop
Mm.
is the bottom line, and that doesn't just relate to the last conversation we had, right? We were
Also, the
talking
election
about,
results.
yeah, election results. Wait and see. Be patient. You know, and that doesn't mean that you discard data that you have, right? Some people will say,
Right.
well, the only poll that counts is on election day. Okay, fair enough, but that doesn't mean that polls in general uh, don't have any value, but they're also not
Right.
gospel, right? Yes, let every vote count. Let things play out, and then go from there. Take it from there, right? We're not in control of everything. We're not. We can get results we don't like in life, right? Whether elections or otherwise. But let things play out. Let the chips fall where they may, and then respond accordingly. That's my bottom line.
I think it's a good bottom line. It's one we should definitely heed, and we could get people to come in and check out Nuance on YouTube at Nuance Show. Everywhere podcasts are available. Jump into the conversation, talk your talk, and you know, speak your mind.
Yes, yes, do that. As always, we've got work to do. We thank you for checking us out, and we'll catch you next time.